Let's get started. Okay, so my name is Meg, and I am the executive director at the Autoimmune Encephalitis Alliance. And this feels really formal because we're sitting up here. There are so few people to be listening that I want this to be so informal and comfortable. Like if I didn't have my boots on, I would so take my shoes off because that's how comfortable I want us all to be. The whole purpose of this panel is to talk about the person with AE's perspective and the caregiver, and we're lucky to have all of that here today. And so I have some questions that I'm going to ask this amazing panel of people who I happen to know all of them, which makes it really comfortable for me as well. And I had a bunch of stuff. If we had a big group, I just got rid of the bunch of stuff. So here we go. I want to start just by doing like a really short intro. And if you've ever told your story before, a short intro is hard, right? Because there's so much to tell. So my short intro is going to be your name, your relationship to AE, and the type of AE you have if it's known. So nothing about your whole story yet. Name, relationship to AE, and type if it's known.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I have broad spectrum autoimmune encephalitis, and I live in Folsom, California, which is outside of Sacramento.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I have seronegative autoimmune encephalitis, and I live here in Seattle, Washington.
Hi, I'm Terry. My spouse, Ken, has LGI1 encephalitis, and we live here on Bainbridge Island.
What she said.
Awesome. So now you know us. Diagnosis is such a tricky part. I feel like we learned some of that from the doctor speaking. And you could probably tell a 20-minute story. And we don't have time for a 20-minute story. So I was thinking, how long did it take for you to get your diagnosis? And if there's something that's super memorable or important to you about this time. And I know I'm asking a lot. I'm asking you to distill down to something really memorable or super important in your opinion. So, how long? Something really memorable.
It took me 8 months to get diagnosed. My memorable thing about my diagnosis is that it started from a virus. It started from ocular shingles, traveled through my fifth cranial nerve, through my blood-brain barrier, became viral encephalitis, and then it became autoimmune. And what was very memorable to me was the strength of my primary care physician, because she recognized the signs. She stood up against my neurologist, who wanted to diagnose me with, and wanted me to see psych. And she said, no, I know what this is. She got me tested, and she got me diagnosed. So I will forever be thankful, and I will always remember that.
That's memorable. Rachel?
It took me almost 2 years to get diagnosed, and we did a Hail Mary trip to New York City to get diagnosed, where I was diagnosed at Lenox Hill. And I just remember walking out of the first appointment with my neurologist and absolutely crying, because he was the first person who I felt took me seriously, and he had a whole plan laid out when I left that appointment, and he was going to get me inpatient treatment and all these tests done, and I felt listened to for the very first time.
It's something that I think is really important about that story, because both of you have just told, I feel like, kind of positive stories about their diagnosis. But also memorable is it was the first time you felt listened to in a long time. And I think that's important to make clear to everybody. It can take a long time. And I love that you have a positive, memorable moment out of all that. That's pretty cool.
Similar, we took almost 2 years to get a clear diagnosis after neurology hopping around the Seattle metropolitan area for, 2 years. And when we did sit down with a author of a paper about LGI1 limbic encephalitis, we thought we were there for half an hour, and turned out we were there for a week. And this was in Rochester, Minnesota, where they, we flew in. We thought we'd have a half-hour conversation with this guy. With any luck, we might get somewhere. And by the end of an hour and a half long place where I felt like I'd been heard and paid attention to, we had a series of, 10 to 15 appointments throughout the week, including spinal taps and MRIs and EEGs and you name it. It was remarkable how thorough the process was in coming up with LGI1. So that's it. And it was ultimately an amazingly good story.
Yeah, thank goodness for good stories. Okay, curious now, where would you say you feel like you are in your health, your AE journey? And if you need multiple choice, like to pick a few words, or if there's something, like, is there something that comes to you immediately? Where are you now in your journey?
I'm regaining my power now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the best part of my journey. I spent like a year and a half kind of trapped in my own body, locked up, and I couldn't go anywhere without supervision. So I am super excited to be where I am. I'm not by any means cured. Lord, no. I'm actually getting retested to reconfirm my antibodies on the 27th. So I'm nowhere near the finish line, but that's okay. And I'm totally at peace with that. I'm taking my LSATs on the 6th of February. Thank you. I am going to need accommodations. Totally fine with that. It's a lot harder now than things were before. But I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with how things are in my life now. And I've accepted the challenge, and I've accepted that the way that things are and how things are different. And I am just really excited for the way that things are now. And I never thought that a rare neurological disease could have given me such a different perspective in my life. Because before this all happened, I was an award-winning businesswoman who was running a multi-million-dollar business. And I'm not that anymore, but I'm gonna be an attorney and I'm gonna be awesome at it. And I started out on this journey, and when my car breaks down along the way, I'm gonna get out of the car and I'm gonna walk. And then when I can't walk anymore, I'm gonna crawl. And when I can't crawl, I'm gonna scoot. And when I stop along the way, I'm going to know that when I end, I didn't stop at my house, that I stopped along the journey. And I got as close to being an attorney as I could go. And I'm okay with that.
Nice.
And so I am I'm taking my life back, and that's where I am.
Where are you, Rachel?
I am slowly trying to get my feet back under me. I have been, trying to battle these headaches that AE has left me with. And we finally got me this year treatment with IVIG. And if anybody knows about IVIG, it also can give you really bad headaches. So we kind of had to battle through the part where it made my headaches worse and then got better. So we've been battling that part, and now it's starting to get better. So I've been battling that and getting my life back going. So exploring what that means for me. So that's where I am right now, just kind of getting things back going and doing more volunteer work, working with the AEA, and doing more volunteer work at my daughter's school, which I just volunteered for a little Halloween party at her school, which is something I haven't done before, so I'm excited to do that. So just getting feelers out there and seeing what all I can do, and driving more, which is a big thing because I didn't drive a lot before, so that's a really big deal for me. So small baby steps and little things like that. So that's where I'm at.
I'm just going to say, Rachel, you say small baby steps. It's huge, some of the things you just said, you know? It's a big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm asymptomatic for the most part. With Rituxan started 8 months ago. Got my second infusion 2 or 3 weeks ago. However, there does seem to be some roller coaster emotional stuff that goes along with that. I have not experienced infections or things like that. Generally, I do feel like I'm getting many of my cognitive skills back, or at least, yeah. So I'm mourning, at my age, I'm mourning the loss of my profession and trying to decide what my next steps are as a person who was kind of forced into retirement from something I was able to do, and trying to find things I can do, and also balance that with just being relaxed with, still living. So that's cool.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Let's see. We're going to run short on time. I was supposed to give an overview of the Alliance, and I'm going to do that probably in about 30 seconds at the very end of this, because I think these conversations are important, and I also want to give people that haven't been with the Alliance before and been with people that have AE the opportunity to ask some questions. So we're going to get to that, I promise. But I think there's a couple of more things that are helpful for everybody. Are there sources beyond the healthcare system? Like, we've listened to doctors talk, and they have great information to share. And sometimes it's just not enough, right? You need other things. So I'm curious, beyond the traditional healthcare system, have you found other sources helpful and supportive with your recovery? And Terry, I think you can share with this as well, because there are caregivers in the room, and I think it's definitely hard living with AE as a person with it, but I think as a caregiver, there's a whole lot that's going on there as well. So I definitely want you to speak.
Well, obviously, the Autoimmune Encephalitis Alliance has been a huge support for me. I go to as many meetings as I can. And I have a pen pal from our group, David. He has been such a fun friend, and we write letters to each other. And I have my friends and my family. I have a wonderful support group at home. Bravo, my dog. My medical alert dog, he's a great little support group. He gets me out of the house multiple times a day. We go on walks. That was huge because I have super bad polyneuropathy, and so that keeps me walking. And my daughter, she's great support. And my friends, friends and family.
I'm going to shout out the Autoimmune Encephalitis Alliance too,
Right.
because I help out with the support groups, and doing that has been such a big part of my life for these past several years. And so that's been just absolutely great. And of course, family and friends, having that support group at home is just wonderful. But definitely, I say join a support group, because finding one of those definitely makes you feel not so alone in the process. Finding a group that can really relate to what you're going through, that's really going to help you in that process.
So I know that this AE group, has been a huge help to Ken for about, I think, a year or longer. Can't quite remember how long we've been.
It's all a blur.
Yeah, and for me as a caregiver as well. I also think that finding non-traditional medical treatments that help the nervous system calm down for both caregiver and patient, because it's just a lot of stress. For example, acupuncture has been very successful for you, Ken, right? So, and for me, just, when things get just pretty stressful, those types of things, yoga, friends, building the team around both the caregiver and the patient is really important. And the team is not just traditional medicine. It's the people that your friends that you can tell how things are really going to, tell that story, how things are really going. And sometimes family members, the dogs, the walks, all the things that really help kind of settle things down and help us think clearly about what's going on.
Ken, how about you, outside of traditional
I would
healthcare?
just say that outside the system, obviously, is Terry, who's been able to get me, she found the AE Alliance, which has been remarkable. And because there's no other group or conversation I've had with anybody, including my own son, about this that has made any sense to them. Terry's lived with it, so the conversations we have make sense to her, but nobody else in my life, except for the Alliance here, kind of gets a grasp of what it is to, be around me or it, or recover from it or not recover from it, or just be on this roller coaster ride of weirdness. I'm babbling. Okay, I'm done.
I love the term, the roller coaster ride of weirdness. Like, I need to write that down because that was good. What is something in your life right now for which you are either grateful or passionate about?
I'm passionate about spreading awareness about autoimmune encephalitis. I am also super passionate about spreading awareness about what invisible disabilities look like. I get a lot of comments from people because they don't realize that, I'm sure we all do, get a lot of comments from people because they don't realize that we have a disability. And my favorite thing to do is to explain to them what autoimmune encephalitis is. And I always do it with a smile. And I love that. And that's what I want to do as an attorney, is I want to go into disability rights and litigation. And this whole thing happening to me was for a reason. And I see that, and I'm so happy that it did.
One of my passions, especially with being part of the Autoimmune Encephalitis Alliance for the support groups, is making sure that people don't feel alone. And that's one of the reasons I like being part of the support groups, is that if someone doesn't feel alone coming to the support groups, is that that's been the goal, is that they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel understood. And at the end of the day, that's what I really want.
I guess one of the things I've learned from the Alliance and the conversations I've paid attention to on the Zoom environment is that getting on top of this as soon as possible, so getting the word out there to the neurology infrastructure throughout the world, to look at this as a possibility as soon as possible, is changing the way treatment can show up. I think if I had been originally diagnosed early, I probably wouldn't even be in this room right now. So but I've watched some of the folks in our conversations who did not get the kind of treatment they could have gotten early on, and are in a way different situation than me, who's up and walking around and, like you said, driving again a bit and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's early diagnosis for as many, and okay, that's it.
What about you? Passionate about? Grateful for?
So I'm passionate about advocacy. And I'm grateful for the people who encouraged me to be as strong of an advocate as I had to be for Ken, because it was very difficult for him to do. And this is, as we all know, a very hidden disease, so to speak. It takes time. And to really keep that voice as a layperson against experts takes a lot of effort in the advocacy role. So I'm just grateful for the people that supported me, that supported us, and I'm just really passionate about trying to figure out how to encourage people to, keep their strength.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I want to open it up to people sitting in this space. Any questions you have for our panel? Anybody?
Well, thank you all for sharing your stories and your experiences. I know, well, really, I can't imagine the kind of steps and the experience that you've had to go through, both through diagnosis, going through treatment options, navigating the medical system, navigating insurance, things like that. All of that is like all part of the experience of navigating a challenging diagnosis like autoimmune encephalitis. And I wanted to ask, as someone, so I work in support of research and advocacy initiatives to try to bring more attention to understanding the aspects of having invisible disability symptoms, for example, for trying to better understand ways that treatments can be better optimized, that quality of life is and day-to-day things that you do are being prioritized. And I just want to know the ways that people who are working in healthcare and in research can be better attuned to listening to the kinds of priorities and concerns and hopes, really, that you all may have and do have as it relates to how we understand autoimmune encephalitis and can be better at providing support, both clinically and also in terms of community engagement.
So one of the things that I would like to emphasize is that because of how obnoxious your brain, when it's under attack, can be, is that aside from just addressing the inflammation and how it impacts you physically, I think immediately getting you engaged with psychologists and psychiatry to address the mood swings, which can be as damaging or more so even than the physical impacts that this is having. I mean, there's not one or the other. It's just like there's just this combination of, it's super depressing to not be able to do what you could do 2 weeks ago, okay? And then you add on to that your neurons are sending messages that are really tricky to your legs and to your eyes and to your nose and everything else. Things quit making sense. And so when things quit making sense, you aren't super motivated to figure out how to get them to make sense. You just kind of want to give up. And I think I've seen it on the screen on the Alliance and the conversations that the Alliance partners have with the people on the screen who are experiencing that often can pull people forward and through that. But that should also be a primary role of the medical field to say, look, we're not done just because I've given you this infusion of this, that, or the other thing, or IGLD. I'm going to make sure that you are getting somebody to talk to that understands that your brain is zigzagging.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Can I touch on that? I just want to emphasize the importance on the advocacy with the clinicians and really just spreading the awareness with neurologists and really tapping into getting the, I don't want to say the older ones. I'm going to say it. Yeah. I'm going to say it. Do it. The older neurologists. To get them to understand that autoimmune encephalitis is a real diagnosis. Because I have gone through many neurologists, and I'm sure many of us have. And this is a newer diagnosis, and so many neurologists do not believe in its existence. And so this just really is something that does exist, and it is something that a lot of mature neurologists do not want to accept. And this is something that we really need to really dig our feet into the ground and really stomp our way down onto Capitol Hill this February together and go to Rare Diseases on the Hill. And we need to make a movement and let them know that we are here and that we exist and they need to know. And our diagnosis is real.
Terry or Rachel, do you want to respond to that? Or
Oh, sure. I was going to say also that recognizing that autoimmune encephalitis is not just acute as well, it's also a spectrum. That was one of the things that was tricky about my diagnosis, is that I have mild autoimmune encephalitis. I didn't have acute, so that was why it was so hard to diagnose me. And I asked my doctor specifically in New York why it was so hard to diagnose me, and he said one of the reasons is because a lot of doctors don't look at it as a spectrum. They look at it as just as the acute. They need to look at it as that spectrum.
I guess what I would say is to remember that even as a layperson in medicine, you know your body, your partner knows, your caregiver knows you, and do not give up in forcefully pushing your way through the red tape of medicine, because we had to do a lot of that, and it paid off, and it was not fun, but the reward was huge. And it's our responsibility to do so. Unfortunately, it's not easy, but it's just the way it is. And knowing that going in, like steeling yourself for that process, could help not get frustrated or, kind of discouraged. But it's just, you just got to keep going.
which is challenging. Anybody else have a question they'd like to ask?
I'd just like to give a word of gratitude. My son is, my wife and my son and my daughter have all been really sick with chronic tick-borne disease and Lyme disease for years. And my son is now 22 next week, has severe psychosis and has for a long time, but he just recently had a bilateral optic neuritis and then was diagnosed with MOG and was blind for a couple of days. But he, through all the great work that you guys have been doing, on the bright side of things, they diagnosed him with MOG really quickly, and he regained he's now able to see again. But so my wife went to the Mayo Clinic MOG conference 2 weeks after he was diagnosed and met with about, 50 different patients, caregivers in Minneapolis. And she said our son was like the only one of all the group that had been diagnosed so quickly. So know that what you guys are doing is actually working. At least it did in my son's case. And so there's hope, and what we're all doing today and what you guys have been doing is working. So I just wanted to share that. I'm very grateful for it.
Okay. Oops. Oh, hey, baby. You decided you wanted under my chair for a while. Anybody else? Any last question? Okay. I was going to take 15 minutes to tell you about the Alliance. I have, I think, 60 seconds. But I feel like this panel has told you a lot about the AE Alliance. Like, it's going to make me cry because I love these people and I know them through Zoom. Rachel and I met about 4 years ago when I started at the Alliance, and she has been a support group leader the entire time, and now she's leading 2 support groups. And for her to say she's passionate about that makes me really happy because she does it well, and I don't want her going anywhere. Lisa may have me in DC marching on the Hill this year because her passion there is gonna, I'm afraid, take me there. Listening to Ken and Terry, Ken, I feel like you're earlier in all of this journey than these 2 women are. And I have been to conferences before, and quite often doctors will say, you get about 2 years of healing. And I don't know who started saying that and why they started saying it, because I can share about Rachel. In the past 4 years, I've watched her grow and develop and now drive and go to her daughter's, go to the Halloween party, and other people that come to support groups as well. I've got several support group leaders that couldn't have done it when I met them, and now they're just all over it and they're supporting other people. And even in support groups, which I will push for the rest of my life, there's sometimes Lisa saying that she has become like a pen pal with somebody that they met in a support group. And after support groups, I often get emails saying, do you think so-and-so would be willing to talk to me outside of the group? And I always send an email. So there's so many connections and so much support. And support groups have changed my life. And I don't have AE, but this group has changed my life. And I invite you all, come to a support group. They're via Zoom. You can join it and say, this isn't the one for me today, and leave. And then you try a different one. We are there for you. Thank you so much for being here for us today. It's great to get to share so much knowledge and experience. So yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you.